Well, thank you for being here. My name is Beto Gudino. You guys know me. Excuse me wearing a hat. I know we're in a sacred place. I don't take it lightly. But if I remove it, my hair is the worst, and I'm saving money because I got a scooter, an electric scooter. So I'm not spending the money on nobody cutting my hair. I'm putting it towards my payment of my scooter. So I'm wearing a hat, right? But this to me is a sacred place. We just baptized Kai a few weeks ago, right here at this baptistry. It was so cool, and yeah, that's awesome. And looking back a little bit, and maybe this is part of the 20-year anniversary. I look back exactly 20 years. I was getting baptized in that same baptistry, the same one. I got baptized in this one right here. This was called La Puerta Abierta back in the days. 20 years ago, I was 18. Can you believe it? So add up, and you'll see how old I am. I'm trying something new today. I am going to use my iPad. So cool, right? Isn't it cool? It is cool. Okay, I just want to pray before I start because the story we're going to hear today, it's amazing. And actually, I've been putting like my notes down, and I have like these little cool phrases I was going to say. And then I thought, wow, Jesus spent all this time telling this story. Why would I do anything else than tell a story? For this time, for this occasion. So I think the Spirit of God is going to move, but I want Him to speak and not me. So if you join me, this is kind of more for me, but if it's for you to pray with me. Lord, I thank you so much for this time, allowing me to be here in front of my friends, in front of family, in front of people that are wanting to get closer to you. I pray that you speak to our hearts, that we see past anything that would hinder who you are, anything that is not you, and that we can find the beauty and the awesomeness of who you are, of how you have called us into your kingdom. In your name, I pray, amen. So good. All right, so I'm going to start with this. My cousin moved to Argentina when I was about 15 years old. And my cousin was 2 years older than me, so he was 17. He was finishing high school. And it's one of those times where nobody in my family ever did ministry. Nobody in my family ever was like, oh, we have a pastor in the family, we have a preacher, we have a musician, nothing like that. Just simple people living simple lives. But at some point, some missionaries came from the U.S. and started a church. My grandmother converted to Jesus. And then my dad started going to this church where he grew up. By the way, all the kids are here today, right? Okay, so we decided arbitrarily to leave the kids here because it's a cool story. So if you want to, you can come front. I forgot to mention that because I want this story to be kind of for you guys too. So just come on up, come to the front, please. Yeah. Now I feel like won't feel so bad telling the story. Because now there's kids. So good. All right, thank you guys. Now you are here and you're going to behave good, right? You're going to listen? Awesome. So good. And my boy just turned 10 yesterday. It's awesome. Beto Joseph. Okay, so we're in Mexico. My cousin graduates high school. And then he has this impulse inside of him, I want to be a missionary. And everybody in the family is like, what? What are you talking about? We don't have any missionaries in this family. You don't even know what you're talking about. You have to leave things behind. You got to sacrifice. You got to move around places. You got to travel. And then, speak about God and do it for the rest of your life. I was like, I feel like this is my passion. This is what I want to do. So he moved to Argentina because there was a Bible college where he went to. Now, this is probably like early 90s or so. So there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no MySpace, There was no MSN. There was no, what was the other one? Q something, right? The only way to talk to my cousin again was through the phone, and it was so expensive that we never did. Like once a year we would call him, and then he was so far out from the city in Argentina that he would have to travel to this place where they had a phone, a landline. Do you guys know what a landline is? No? Okay, it's a phone attached to a bunch of cables that go around the world, so you could talk to people instead of just wirelessly calling people. So imagine that, right? So if I wanted to talk to my cousin, I had to go through this whole ordeal. Or send a letter. That was the worst. If you send a letter, especially from Mexico to anywhere, maybe they gotten better, but it would take months to arrive, so by the time the letter got there, you had all these new things you wanted to say, and it's like, oh man, that was so long ago. I changed, I grew, I turned, 16. So he moved, and it was so hard for me because he was one of my best friends. We would do all kinds of things together. We would get on the bus, play the guitar on the bus in Mexico, right in the bus, and as the bus is, moving, we're like playing the guitar, and we're singing, and we're like sharing about who Jesus is on a bus. Like, how weird is that? But this was my cousin, and I admired everything he did, right? And now he's moving away, and I feel like, yeah, that's the right call. That's the right pursuit of life. But I'm going to miss you, man. You're my best friend. And it's like the first time, I think, in my life that my heart was ever broken. Because it was just great friendship. It went beyond just being my family. And when he came back 2 years later, he did a total of 4 years in Argentina. But after 2 years, he came back for like a little while. Couple weeks, I can't remember, maybe a month or so. So he comes back, and I'm like super eager to meet him, right? Oh, how are you? How was Argentina? What did you do? What did you learn? How did God speak to you? All these kinds of crazy things. And one of the things that I mostly and fondly remember is that there was this, and I don't know I'm sure this happens in every country, but for example, in Mexico, when you tell a joke, there's typically like some person that you make the joke out of, right? So in Mexico, it's always like the Spanish that came, and we make jokes. It's always the Spanish, and we make like this Spanish accent when we're telling the joke. So I'm sure there's those here in America for whatever it is, right? And then there's this other idea that for some reason, everybody in Argentina is like egotistical, like they would say, how would you kill an Argentinian? I'm not even... that were really bad, but I don't know why we had this impression that just all Argentinians, ego, they believe they're closer to God, and now they kind of are, because now they have the Pope, they have Lionel Messi being like the greatest soccer player ever, they have Maradona, so they're always like, we have all these great, amazing people from Argentina, right? A little bit like Italians. And I have some Italian friends, so I can say that. But I don't know why I had this thought, right? So when he comes back, I'm kind of like, so tell me, how did you deal with these Argentinians? Did you get along? Did you have to slap someone in the face? Did you get in a fight? No? And he says, one of the greatest things that I have to overcome is the fact that we are people, and if God brought me to Argentina, I had to learn how to love them, however they are, whatever, whether they're ego or no ego or whatever it is. He's like, I had to learn to love them as they are, as people, because that's what I've been learning, right? A missionary, somebody that goes somewhere else and loves people that he's not familiar with. So that just like, I was, 16, 17? That completely changed my paradigm of how to see people, right? So then later on, I moved to America. And I kind of had to apply this idea that, okay, if I'm in America, I'm going to love people as they are, And now I found that in America, there's people from everywhere in the world. So wow, there's Italians, there's Koreans, there's people from America, there's natives, there's Indonesian, all kinds of people from everywhere. What a cool place to be. And I was reading a story that is actually a story that Jesus told. And it's a made-up story, because this is not a story that he said happened. It's a story that he's creating in his mind. And we normally know this story as the story of the Good Samaritan. So if you have heard the story of the Good Samaritan, raise your hand. Okay. I'm going to call it the story of the Bad Samaritan. Not just because. I'm going to call it the Bad Samaritan because it's called the Good Samaritan because in their view, these guys were the bad guys. Right? So when Jesus is telling the story, they realize, wow, I can't believe there can be a Good Samaritan because they are bad. So that's why people call it the Good Samaritan story, right? But what we're going to read is that it goes beyond that. It's so cool. And I feel we were just singing, heaven comes to fight for me, right? I think sometimes what we're going to see in this story is that sometimes people lose faith in God because they lost faith in people, right? And you're hoping that heaven's going to come and fight for you, but you don't see the bolt of lightning falling down until somebody shows up in your life and walks with you. So join with me, please, in this story. It's in Luke 10, verses 25 through 37. And I'm going to be reading the Message version of it by Eugene Peterson. So if you have it on your Bibles, just let me know because I have this really cool guy that's going to read it for us. You good? All right.
Defining neighbor. Just then, a religion scholar stood up with a question to test Jesus. Teacher, what do I need to do to get eternal life? He answered, what's written in God's law? How do you interpret it? He said, that you love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence, and that you love your neighbor as well as you do yourself. Good answer, said Jesus. Do it and you'll live. Looking for a loophole, he asked, and just how would you define neighbor? Jesus answered by telling a story.
All right. We're going to pause it right there. Let's just focus on those first lines right before he says the story, right? So let's look at it from a little microscope, like my friend James would say. Just then, a religion scholar stood up with a question to test Jesus. So it's already telling you what the intentions of this guy are, right? This guy's wanting to test who this guy is. If he's the Son of God, I really want to know. But he's also telling you that this guy is a religion scholar. Now, this is true story. So far, the story is real. All the characters are real. It happened. And he asks him, teacher, what do I need to do to get eternal life? So if you don't know, religion scholar, it's like a pastor, all right, of their times. So he asked Jesus, teacher, what do I need to do to get eternal life? And he answered, I love it, because Jesus doesn't typically gives you the answer, right? You're hoping, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that. These are the five things on how to love people. Boom, 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 and then you're done. No, he replies with a question. In our day and age, we call this coaching. So he's coaching this guy into asking the right kind of question. So he says, what's written in God's law? How do you interpret it? And his answer is amazing because you guys have heard of the 10 Commandments, right? Yeah, and I don't remember all of them right now by name. But there's 10 of them. And when Jesus, in another book, I think this guy, actually, the religion scholar, probably read another of the books in the Bible, because in another book, Jesus responds, and he summarizes all the 10 into 2. So in his answer, he already summarizes only 2 commandments. And he says, okay, in the law, basically what it says is that you love your God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence, and that you love your neighbor as well as you do yourself. Good answer, Jesus replied. That's perfect, because even Jesus in the other books, he said the exact same thing. These are like the two ways to summarize the 10 Commandments. Love God and love your neighbor. And then he adds, good answer, said Jesus, do it and you live. So he could have ended right there, but the guy was trying to test Jesus, right? So he comes up with the second question, and it says, looking for a loophole, he asked, and just how would you define neighbor? Right? We're always looking for a limit to the calling that God puts in our life, right? Even Peter, in another part of the Bible, he's saying to Jesus, he's asking them, how often should I forgive the one that offended me? Should I forgive him even 7 times? And then he says, you should forgive him 70 times 7. So like always, right? In a day. So imagine that. So God is always pushing us further than the limit. So he asked, how would you define neighbor? And then Jesus answered by telling a story. Oof. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to try to summarize it. I'm going to try to skip all the unimportant stuff. But I'm going to tell you the story of how I came to America. Right? I was this kid living in Mexico, having a good life, having a great time. I had this dream that I wanted to pursue music, that I wanted to be in a band, that I wanted to play in front of people and sing. And for some reason, all my heroes, my music heroes, were in the United States. DC Talk, Newsboys, Michael W. Smith, Carmen. So I thought, that's where I got to go, And I even went one time, I remember, I went to Nashville, and I had an album, a CD that I'd recorded in Mexico. And I knock on the doors of some, what are they called? Like a producer, that pushes the music to everybody and makes you known and all that stuff. And I remember knocking on the doors, and I hear a voice. It's like, who is this? I'm like, and imagine my accent back then was even worse, right? So this is like many years ago. So I knock, and it's like, who's this? I'm like, I have an album. I want to show it to you. Oh, you got to go through the proper way. Send it to this and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, I guess this is not the way. Right? I went all the way to Nashville to knock on this door, only to be rejected. And so anyways, that was my dream, right? But at some point in this dream, I got stuck because I couldn't go back to Mexico, and I couldn't see a lot of my family anymore, right? So take wild guesses, and you're probably right. But when I was 24, that's when I went on to this endeavor, right? I'm going to pursue my dreams. I'm going to go to America. I'm going to go to California. My mom lives there already. She'll make way for me. All my family live there, so I have a place to be. And little did I know that it was going to be so hard for me to ever go back to Mexico. Actually, I haven't been back to Mexico in 14 years, ever since. And I thought, it's going to be probably like 2 months, 3 months. I'm going to figure out a way, to get proper documentation to go back and forth, to go visit. And then life started happening, right? I met my wife. I started having kids. And then I was in this crucible. And then the more time passed, the more that my hopes were on the floor, shattered. I don't think there's ever a way to accomplish getting green. Right? I didn't see a way. I didn't see how it could become a reality. And I kind of gave up. Or maybe I gave up. Yeah, I didn't kind of give up. I just gave up. And now it's been 14 years, and I have a little picture that you're going to see on the screen right now. Mike's going to put it. And these are my nieces and my two older sons at Newport Beach Pier. So my nieces are visiting from Mexico. My brother lives in Mexico. He is not allowed to come here. I'm allowed to go there, but I don't really want to because I have a family here. So he sends his two daughters to spend time with my boys. And I snapped this picture, Melody somewhere there playing in the sand. My sister's little daughter is somewhere on the carrier. And when I snapped this picture, something inside of me was burning. Something was heavy. It was almost like somebody beat me up and was leaving me on the floor, defeated, lifeless. And I was thinking, wow, I see a little glimpse of who my brother is in seeing my little nieces, playing with my boys. They hadn't seen each other in 7 years at this point, and this is this summer. And at some point, I started thinking, I relate so much to the story that Jesus is about to tell this guy. Because in my walk, and I got baptized right here. I told you that already, right? Then later on, I was living here already in the U.S. 26 or something. No, sorry. 28, I met Millie, got married. Then we started going to this church called La Puerta Abierta, but now at this point they moved to Irvine. Then we went to Rock Harbor. And then at some point I knew that my friends from La Puerta Abierta were having a church here, and that's Christian Parra. You guys all know Christian Parra. He even preached a few weekends ago right here. So my neighbor from across the door passed away in 2016. And I told his mom, can I do something for you? The least I can do is play music at your funeral, right? Paul was there. My friends from the band Signa were here. They were playing the music. This same spot. All like 100 kids came. They're all crying for his friend who just passed away. And that's the day I met Pastor Mike. That's the day I met this awesome guy. And it's so strange when you start connecting the dots of your own life to see where God has moved, to see where there has been pain, where there has been struggle, where there has been, you feel like the world has beat you up and leave you on the side of the road. And I meet a guy like this. So I'm going to tell you the story that Jesus read. It says, and you can have it on the screen. It says, Jesus answered by telling the story, there once was a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. On the way, he was attacked by robbers. They took his clothes, beat him up, and went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, not so, but luckily, a priest was on his way down the same broad road. Have you ever been beat up so close to even dying? I don't know if you've been, literally like dying on the floor. One time I passed out like 3 years ago, and I remember I woke up and all I'm seeing is like leaves on my face and then the blue sky. And I'm like, what happened? What am I doing here? Why am I seeing leaves? And then I thought, oh, I fell asleep. And then I went back to Millie. She's like, no, you passed out. I went for a run. I didn't know you kind of have to drink water before going for a run to keep hydrated. So anyways, I was there on the floor, and it's strange, because you can almost hear everything that's going on around you. So imagine this guy in the story. He's half dead, but he's still listening, right? So he hears the steps. Well, not like this, but steps on the road back going to Jericho. And he probably thought, oh, help is on the way. Help is coming. Lucky. So it says, he went off, leaving him half dead. Oh, yeah. Luckily, a priest was on his way down the same road. But when he saw him, he angled across to the other side. I don't have time for this. Then a Levite religious man showed up. He also avoided the injured man. And he's talking about people that are church people, right? He's talking about us, the people that go to the gatherings, the people that are the preachers, the people that say, we love God. And they passed him by. Now I wonder why, because now we know it's the Bad Samaritan that becomes the Good Samaritan that's going to stop, right? We know the story, so let's keep reading. A Samaritan. Now imagine what's stirring up in the people that's listening right now, right? Because the Samaritans are the bad guys. So a Samaritan traveling the road came on him. When he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. He gave him first aid, disinfecting and bandaging his wounds. Then he lifted him onto his donkey, led him to an inn, and made him comfortable. In the morning, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take good care of him. If it costs any more, put it on my bill. I'll pay you on my way back." You see all the things it took for this guy? No wonder the other people didn't stop, right? I think when you see somebody that's been beat up by the world and we pass them by, it's because we know what it's going to take if we stop. If we stop, we know it's going to take money, it's going to take resources, it's going to take our time, our precious time, especially in Orange County, our precious time. He spent the night, and then the next day he gave the coins to the guy at the inn and said, "On my way back, if I need to pay any more, let me know." Maybe he was on his way to do business so he could have more money, right? Or maybe he didn't want to carry all the money on the road. By the way, just arbitrarily, I like to think, Jesus doesn't say, but I like to think that the person listening to the story, the characters of the story, that the guy that stopped and helped is a 65-year-old man. And I like to think arbitrarily that the guy on the floor is a 25-year-old, who is trying to discover the world. He's traveling these roads, and then he gets mugged, attacked by robbers. See all that it takes? And then, verse 36. What do you think? This is Jesus coming back to the person, the religious scholar. Which of the 3 became a neighbor to the man attacked by robbers? And then the scholar responded, "The one who treated him kindly." Jesus said, "Go and do the same." This is awesome because first the guy is trying to test Jesus, right? And he says, trying to trick him, what are the laws that we are to obey? Love God, love your neighbor. Then Jesus turns it around. And then he asks, who is my neighbor, right? What's the limit? And really Jesus doesn't answer who your neighbor is. Jesus basically answers, who are you a neighbor to? Who are you seeing on the side of the road that you can walk with in their pain? Walk with them in their struggle. Invest in them because you see potential, right? So there's this man that could see past, maybe racism or, let me see, I have it right here. Oh yeah. Segregation or discrimination. That's the invitation of Jesus. And in my personal walk, there's this, I don't know what, Mike said something like your calling and your pivotal moment in life when you hear that God is calling you maybe into ministry and you got to respond, right? So In this walk of trying to get my documents right, some people saw me on the side of the road and picked me up and walked with me and invested in me. And they saw past discrimination or whatever it was. And they went out, their heart went out for me. And Mike came to me and he said, "Is there a way I can help you with your papers?" And I said, "It's super hard. I've tried all kinds of ways, but there's this lawyer. Can we go talk to this lawyer?" We went and talked to the lawyer. Doc was there, and then the lawyer says, it's a crazy story. One day I got to tell you the whole story. But then this lawyer says, "Yeah, there's a good chance we can do it." And he's a good lawyer, so if you have recommendations, this guy is amazing. He has brought Siggy Marley, he has brought all kinds of amazing baseball players, football players, musicians. Great lawyer, has all the credentials, right? So 2 years ago, Mike sitting with me, Doc sitting with me in my pain, in my hurt, in my brokenness, in my hopelessness. And this guy says, "Do you want to move forward with this? It's going to require some money, so bring your wallets out," right? And I remember Doc saying, "I think we should do it." And in that moment, I just started bawling. I started crying. Like I couldn't believe somebody could pick me up like that and carry me and put me on their donkey and pay the price and take me to the inn, to Palm Harvest, right? So a couple months ago, we got an answer. And it wasn't the answer we were expecting. It was a rejection. They say, "Your case has been denied." Wow. But we spent all this money. But there was a pivotal moment in my personal walk. And when I look back, that's why I point to the baptistry, to meeting Mike right here at Palm Harvest or Iglesia Harbor or whatever you want to call it, in a moment of somebody else's pain. And the funny thing is that this kind of petition is called a religious petition, right? That they denied. And in a sense, what they were describing is, what you do doesn't sound religious enough to us. And I remember I went out for a walk. I sat under a tree. I was just trying to process. I was trying to think, am I going to be sent back to Mexico right away? Am I going to take my kids? What am I going to tell my friends? What's going to happen with my life? Is this the plan you have for me? And then I went back to 2 years ago and remembering Doc's words. I think we should do it. I think we should move forward with this. And I said, God already said yes to me. Even if I'm rejected right here, the people of God have already said yes to me. They already picked me up. They already believed in me. They already invested in me. And I felt like that was the yes of God. I felt like that's heaven coming down to fight for me. So as we were sitting a couple weeks ago and debating what's going to happen now, well, we can do this process that requires all this much money. But the crucible for me was, did you even believe that you are called to do this? Because they're rejecting you for something that you actually agree with them. Because for the longest time, I thought, like I said with my cousin, we are not in a family that had preachers. We are not in a family that had, people doing miracles or these things, right? But my cousin set the example for me. So great, so good. He's still serving God in ministry. And I thought, I think this is my calling. I think this is my moment where God is saying, this is bigger than you living wherever in the world. This is about you believing what I'm calling you to do. And I'm going to be with you. I'm going to walk with you. But are you going to say yes to me? So in that crucible, all I could do is, God, you've been good to me. You've said yes to me, and you are my passion. You know, when I look around, when I look at people, when I look at how the youth is living, and I feel like you are calling me into this next generation to showcase what love is, to showcase what hope is, to showcase what kindness is, to live it out. I think a lot of us have been taught for many years, and now the call is to put it to practice, right? A lot of you guys do, and it's amazing. See, I even forgot where I was. Oh, yeah. So I said yes to God, and then the people that came along with me on the road, healing my wounds, said, let's do it again. It's costly, but let's do it again. So the next day, they brought up their 2 coins, and they paid the man at the inn and said, if there's any more I need to pay, tell me, and I'll pay you on the way back. And this is exactly what people like Lisa, what Mike, what Doug have done. And in a sense, all of you guys. And really the only question here, the final question, is who are you being a neighbor to? Who are you walking with in their pain? What wounds are you helping to mend? The way to help one is to be one whose heart goes out for the needy. And by the way, God calls this kindness. So I want to invite you, as Jesus is telling this amazing story, made-up story. I wanted to tell my story because in a sense, Jesus' story is so epic that I see a parallel with my story. And I dare you, asking the questions, be like them. Be the Mikes, be the Dougs, be the Lisa Bennings over time. Amen?
Hi, my name's Melissa Pena. Thanks for joining our online Palm Harvest community. We'd love to connect with you. If there's a specific way that we can pray for you, please send us your prayer requests at prayer@palmharvest.com. If you'd like to support our ministry, please text us at 84321. Thanks again. God bless.